There we
Okay.
go. All right, so pleasure to be here today. I'm Matt Johnson from Clearwire.
Carmen Hall from Clearwire.
So within Clearwire, I work in the hosting team. I'm responsible for our enterprise data network as well as our infrastructure architecture.
And I manage our IT wholesale focused groups. So if it comes to wholesale settlement, wholesale provisioning, and use of provisioning, that falls into my area.
All right, so today what we're going to cover is essentially our story of how Hadoop came to be at Clearwire and kind of what the platform looks like today. And then we'll turn it over for questions at the end. And with that, so where did it start with? It started with a little bit of ingenuity. And so ingenuity has a special place at Clearwire. We have something called Ingenuity Day. We do it about every 6 months. And it's an opportunity for everyone in IT to present their craziest ideas, ideas that they wouldn't normally feel comfortable bringing up to the leadership team. So out of that, one of those crazy ideas was from Roger Hostow, who's here today, the smartest guy on stage. He had the solution for Clearwire's big data problem. It was Hadoop. But wait, right? This was a classic problem of sorts. We had a solution for big data, but we needed a big data opportunity. We needed a good problem to solve. Fortunately, I think we had just the thing.
The perfect problem. So now we get into the wholesale space. So our commodity, what we sell in wholesale, is our network. And the way we bill for that is by providing usage data to our wholesale partners. A few of them up here, you probably have heard of many of these. Maybe some people are from a couple of them. And one of the challenges we have is how quickly can we deliver that data and in the right format to enable their business. Each of the people that you see up here, Sprint has a very different model than Earthlink, say, or Net Zero, or Simplexity, or Freedom Pop. And so the challenge was, corporate communications hates it when we say challenge, so we're going to reframe that to the opportunity, was to do this differently and do it better. First, for those who aren't in the telecommunications industry, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background on why usage data is even a thing. We're all pretty used to using as much as we possibly can, and that contributes to these numbers that I pulled from the CTIA website for 2012, that Americans used a buttload of data. We're heavily wired, 1,304 to be precise, petabytes of wireless data, and you can see the trend as it's increasing. Clearwire processes about 3 billion individual usage detail records. So that's the number of records that come in, not the volume of transactions or of usage it actually encompasses. It's not what's traveling across our network. This is individual data records. And each of these has to go somewhere, either to our retail side or our wholesale side. What's interesting, though, about wireless right now is there's a little bit of shift just in the general landscape. For those that don't know, it's almost a $200 billion industry. I thought it was interesting that when you put that in context, larger than publishing, agriculture, hotels, although based on the cost of the hotel room I stayed in last night, I find it hard to believe it's bigger than that. But just to name a few, it's huge, right? It's bigger than movies. And the prepaid portion, the pay-as-you-go services part is increasing. So this is, again, end of 2012 numbers, about 23% of the overall market is prepaid. Anecdotally, we've seen a rise in prepaid subscribers from the beginning of the year of about 200%. And those subscribers use twice as much data as a non-pay or a post-pay subscriber. So it's interesting because usage of delivery and the timeliness of usage of delivery in that kind of case is so important. If you can't get partners' usage, they can't manage their business. In some cases, a customer can consume data faster than we can deliver it. So this was our challenge. Because everyone has charts, and I like charts too, I wanted to show you where our problem space was. It's a laser pointer, awesome. So everything here to the left of this OSS data warehouse, that's the collaboration point on our network side, that's all network. So we have a sunk time cost of an hour before we ever see usage come into the IT space. Our legacy platform IT usage processing was actually tied up in our provisioning as well. So the same platform that provisioned partners onto the network and gave them access also was the platform that a component of it helped deliver the usage out to partners at the end. It could take up to 90 minutes on a good day. This is if everything is working well. There's pieces within that latent 1 hour network side that if anything got delayed there, it expanded the base hour. And if you expand the base hour, you end up expanding our processing time. For example, each of these, oh, I went backwards. Each of these collection points have a delay. And in our legacy platform, every collection point had to report in for their 15 minutes before we could go forward. So if you had, say, a slowdown in the Houston market, and for some reason those towers weren't reporting, it held up the nationwide footprint, and everything started to be delayed going forward. Lastly, we, because of the connection between the usage processing and the provisioning, we took a 4-hour maintenance window every Sunday where we didn't deliver usage at all. And then we had to recover from a self-imposed backup. Now, you may be thinking, why does that matter? Money. You talk numbers. Now, this is a little bit of a hyper example, I'm going to admit, but let's assume you have a 2 megabyte plan. You're a prepay or a pay-as-you-go customer. You have a 2 meg plan. This is an actual plan you can buy from one of our MVNO partners. Research on the internet tells us that an HD movie streaming from Netflix can consume that 2 gig in an hour. So I don't know how many people watch a half a movie at a time. I don't. But if you think back to the chart we just saw, that means that in the first hour, before we ever know you used it, you could have blown through this. When you look at pricing, wholesale prices, we've done a lot of of shifting, but assume it's $6 per gig. Fairly standard. That's what our partners are paying us for that amount of information. And again, based on what we're seeing on the internet, you can go out and research them yourself. The average retail price for a gigabyte of data can run from $20 to $100 for those partners. So think about what you're leaving on the table if you don't have the opportunity to turn them off when they've used what they've paid for. Now, wholesale partners have had to go through and done a lot of marketing. They've had to put a lot of processes in place to try and protect themselves from this. But that's overhead that if we could be faster, then they don't have to have the overhead and they have a better customer experience. As if that wasn't enough, and we'll get to the technical bit here in a second, we were locked into a really expensive vendor. And it wasn't adaptable, it wasn't flexible. This is one of those vendors where every time you say, I think I want to make this tweak, they kind of do the $1 million in 6 months to do it. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity where we had. So the challenge was, we forced ourselves into the challenge a little bit by giving notice before having a plan. We needed something innovative. We needed something reliable because this is a 24/7 operation. Usage comes in every 15 minutes, has to be processed. Needed to be internally supportable. So we didn't want to have the huge bring scores and scores of people to come in and handle it. It needed to be scalable because although we thought we would start small, we didn't know where it could go, and there's an interesting story around that, and we needed it fast. We gave notice in May of last year, and our intention was to be off of the entire platform in a year. We needed to move usage, and the target there was before Thanksgiving. Easy, right?
It certainly was a lot of work to get there, but so kind of the funny part is you suddenly encountered this situation where we had a great solution, and we suddenly were embarking on a project. It was this challenge of we needed to build this entire platform to ingest, process, and provide cleaned usage data for downstream applications and do it really quickly. And you kind of add it all up at a high level, and it's kind of these handful of things that you see up there. We needed a Hadoop cluster. We needed 24/7 operations. We needed code to ingest all of the data and handle a myriad of business rules, everything from duplicate checking to making sure that the data that we're expecting to see is coming through, that all the right checkpoints along the way, because this is billing data, right? So you got to start thinking about things like SOX compliance. And it had to integrate with legacy and new systems. Out of all of that, Atlas was born. So Atlas is the name that we give our Hadoop platform internally within Clearwire. You'll see it show up a little bit later as well. We immediately began development work on Clearwire's private cloud infrastructure. So we started with just all virtual Hadoop nodes. We went with the 101 version, wrote a whole bunch of custom code leveraging Hive and other common tools, and built a bunch of infrastructure to support all of this. So what does it look like? So in production today, we're using virtual edge nodes, using our existing private cloud. Physical data nodes. We did that because I know there's kind of that ongoing discussion around virtual or physical, and for us, that kind of per unit cost, storage and CPU, was lower than the existing virtual infrastructure. So it kind of made sense to deploy the physical data nodes and scale those out in a linear way. And ultimately, it's smaller and more efficient than you think. It's somewhat humbling to be here and see folks talk about 1,000 node clusters and spinning up in the cloud, 600 node clusters. That's awesome. But in our case, we're 24 data nodes, each with 3 terabytes of storage. It gives us about 72 terabytes of usable space altogether. And then we're doing the kind of standard 3x block replication for the production data to protect against single node failure. And then in addition to all of that, we've got an identical DR analytics platform deployed. Looks the same as what's above that we do DR and analytics on. So with all of that said, this was operational in no time. We were about 2.5 months from kind of the official project approval, let's go buy stuff, to putting this into production. I mean, very rapid turnaround. Through all of this, one of the big challenges was we didn't want to invent something new that we couldn't support, right? So we needed to leverage the common tools. We didn't want to have to require specialized teams. We want to build on the skill sets that already existed within Clearwire. So we did that. And then just the fault tolerance that was within Hadoop, which is one of the things that makes it an attractive solution, really helps minimize those late night calls. Node dies, really not a big deal, right? It's kind of one of the beauties of it. Before we knew it, we kind of had this endless supply. Every 15 minutes, more and more data coming through the system. And the results were looking really good.
So I think as Matt alluded to, as we've gone through the conference, I kind of said to someone yesterday, we're the little elephant in kind of the big herd of elephants. I guess we're all elephants now that are here, but even little elephants are elephants, right? So we had real results out of what we did. First, we had a 65% improvement in end-to-end times. We took an overall average of 2.5 to 1.3 hours. This has been good and bad. It's been great that we were able to do it. The bad part is now the business expects us to go faster than this. No rest for the weary. We also reduced our catch-up time from upstream outages. Remember, I talked about any impact that you had upstream on the network. We were waiting to collect everything at one point, and we sent it downstream. The legacy platform for a 2-hour outage took us about 2 hours to get back to normal processing. So you would see these at the most, you could be 4 hours latent from a 2-hour outage, and then you get back, if you're lucky, to the 2.5 hours. So we were able to reduce that. A 2-hour outage takes us at maximum about 45 minutes to recover for, based on how fast Roger can push files downstream to the applications. We reduced the outage impacts by introducing flexibility. We no longer have to wait for everything to report. So a business unit can come in and say, we're having a problem in Houston. I don't know why I'm picking on Houston. If you're from Houston, I'm sorry. The network's very strong. Go buy Clearwire. But if you happen to be, if there's a problem there, we don't have to wait anymore. We can make the decision that we're going to exclude that particular reporting stream. We're going to continue with all of the other usage, and we're going to come back and catch that up. And that allows our partners to have access to their data. It's their data when it comes down to it. And they're the ones that control the access on the network. So it enables us to minimize outage impacts by not having them be full outages. And last, which again, we just didn't get enough credit for on this last one, I swear. We eliminated that 4-hour weekly outage. We now can push code quickly enough if there's tweaks to either the Atlas or the downstream system. We can do it in the 15 minutes between file deliveries. We also have a little bit of tolerance. We know there's certain points in the day where in general things are a little bit slower due to volume. So we know there's a couple of windows, but we no longer force people and force our partners to have to wait for that 4 hours to get any usable data at all. Boop. All right. So the anatomy of latency now. We haven't cracked that hour because we haven't been let into the network space yet. But what we, yet is the operative word. What we did do was reduce that up to 90 minutes to about 15 minutes on average. The Atlas piece takes 5 to 6 minutes to ingest all of the data, do its work, and then pass it downstream to our other custom application, Medusa, which actually overlays a few more business rules and creates files in the format that partners need to actually use. Altogether, like I said, about 15 minutes. Developers here all the time come and say, we think we can make it better. We think we can shave off a couple of minutes here or there. As soon as it launched, that's what we heard. We can do it faster. How many months do you need? So this has been huge. And even in the space, the piece there, and having a greater ability to manage the way we deliver usage, to do tweaks on the Hadoop platform and downstream, has helped us deliver it just incredibly fast.
All right, so and then kind of the real financial results of all of this stuff. It was a 6-month return on investment for kind of the cost of building the platform against the cost of supporting the legacy platform. Delivered it at 1/3 the cost of the competing solutions that we looked at. So, you know, we did look at other alternatives out there. We kind of go back to wanting to be innovative, wanting to find the low-cost solution that's really fast, that's on the leading edge of how to do this. It really was a no-brainer, and delivered it, again, at 1/3 the cost of the other things that we looked at. And I think, frankly, it's operating faster than those other solutions would have as well.
And we also, this was foundational, and maybe if you walk away with nothing out of this other than the next couple of pages, this is where we think Hadoop really helped us transform what we're doing with our business. By putting Hadoop in and taking usage processing out of the legacy system, we were able to continue our plan to migrate from that system. This is only going to go out to the internet. We put tens of millions of dollars on here. I'm going to say the number. I'm going to do the estimate. I'm going to say it. I'm going to go on record. This enabled us to probably save $40 to $45 million in our company because it enabled us to do the next project. And that's the transformational part. We went and we looked. We couldn't find something that did what Hadoop and Medusa were able to do for us. There wasn't a standalone IPDR generation tool. Maybe someone should build one. Maybe we'll go do that next. Because there wasn't anything like that out there. And if we hadn't been able to move this piece first, we never could have moved forward. So that gets us to a little bit of the intangibles, right? There's always tangible stuff, and it's great to stand up here and say, yeah, we did it cheap, and we had a 6-month ROI, and we saved $40 million, and that's great. What are the intangibles? We've proved, and anyone in IT knows how hard this is to do, we've proved that we deliver what we promise. I mean, that's not hard to do. We all deliver what we promise all the time, with limited impacts to the business. We cut over usage processing to partners. So keep in mind, this is changing the engine as we were driving. We cut it over with no interruption to any file delivery. They didn't know it happened. Frankly, we told them because we wanted them to do some testing. But right before holiday season, so right before Thanksgiving, right before we go into heavy sales in the December timeframe, we said, we're changing the way you bill. There was a little bit of concern about it, but in the end we proved there was nothing. You know, they went to bed one day, we cut it over, they came up the next and said, wow, there's nothing except for now it's faster. And that was the key to the speed we were able to move off of the billing platform and get some of those big dollars. In fact, we did the Hadoop project so well that when it came time to replace the rest of it, which was the billing engine and the provisioning engine, we actually couldn't get partners to test because we said, it's going to be just like we did usage. It's going to be fine. We've tested it. We're not impacting you. And a week before launch, we had partners that said, no, it's cool. You're fine. We trust you. We kind of want you to look at it a little bit. It's like we recommend you test. But it was amazing. And we did, for anyone who's ever worked in billing, we did an entire billing conversion, including moving customers from one system to another in 4.5 months. And it's all based on the fact that we were able to have some intangible bits here that our business partners were on on board with us. Our finance group was on board. Everyone in IT was on board, and most importantly, those wholesale MVNOs were on board.
Yeah, I mean, really the key here is that it was so much more than just a Hadoop platform, right? This notion of it being kind of big and scary, and not sure how that's all going to turn out. It turned out really well. We kept it relatively simple to get it in the door. And what it really is it's this enterprise usage platform for us that we're able to grow on, right? It kept true to Clearwire's innovative spirit that we can make a difference in IT, right? That IT really is a value add to the business. We're always looking for ways to improve how the business does things, improve the speed at which things occur. And this was really just a great platform to grow from, right? The Atlas Hadoop platform is now a go-to solution within Clearwire. Whenever we think about needing to do data, this is one of the first, Atlas is that first word that pops into people's minds, right? Roger was just telling us before we got up here that I'm not sure if he was telling or complaining that we already need to add more nodes because we're consuming all of the space that's already there. And that's because it is that go-to platform now, right?
He has node envy after this one.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, he wants more.
So LTE usage data, that's now in production. So as Clearwire moves from WiMAX to offering LTE service, that LTE usage data is now flowing through the same system. Other data sources as well. So ESR data, and what ESR data is it's the data that we're pulling directly off of the routers that sit at the edge of Clearwire's network. So we're not just kind of taking that earlier chart where you saw the usage flowing out of one system. We're actually enriching the data. We're adding other data sources to it to do comparisons to say, are all of the systems aligning, right? Are we actually billing the right thing and making sure that all looks good? We're doing data replication with it, with some Salesforce things that we've got in our new platform. And starting to get into that real-time ETL. It's been very exciting to see some of the new 2.0 features and how we're going to enable that. We're also looking at, we talked about that hour that we couldn't move, right? We're looking at how do we get this platform closer to where that usage is actually being generated on the network and trying to make that as real time as possible. The example of being able to consume the data faster than you can bill for it is a real problem, right? And so the only way to solve that is to start eating into that hour and start delivering data faster than we ever have before. And ultimately, it's changing the mindset of what IT can mean to an organization, right? We stand up here very proudly to say that this was something that IT delivered to Clearwire and kept it simple in some ways, complicated in others, but we did deliver it. We delivered it in a very short amount of time, and it works, right? It really does work, and we built a lot of credibility for IT within the business.
And I think now we have our next challenge, opportunity. Which is too much of a good thing. Now everyone looks around. The network folks came to us and said, you're doing something cool. How do we partner with you to do something cool in our space? And I don't know how many people work with network. And we're talking like RF network people, not like IT network people. There's a very much, this is mine and that's yours, and we don't want to share kind of mentality. So to have that openness come because we've proven we've brought something of value is incredible. And it's all because somebody had an idea and said, we think we should do this thing, and there's elephants, and we don't have big data yet, but we're going to, and we're getting there. And so it's been a pretty incredible journey.
And one of the questions that we've heard is from folks is, what did you do to get Hadoop into the organization? Several people have asked Roger that. And so hopefully through this, you've gotten some idea and some sense of what that looked like and how we did that and how we innovated. And so with that, we'll turn it over to questions. And if they're super technical, I'm going to defer to Roger.
Yeah, that's why we brought Roger. So because they're taping it, people are asking to go talk into the microphones. Roger, I think the podium one is up, so that'll help mic you. But we'd love to answer anything. We kept this a little light and short on purpose, mostly because we could talk about the Hadoops. Yeah. It's about enablement, right?
A little tall for me. Hi. I had a question. So you said that from project approval to production was 2.5 months, right? So what kind of pre-planning did you guys do to staff up and to train your team, and how many people did it take you to get there?
We started at this was part of the overall replacement initiative. We
Okay.
started looking at options and feasibility in January of last year. And really we were looking to, as an overall kind of big piece, did we want to buy something new? Did we want to go with what we still had? So we actually did planning for the first, I think, 4 months, and we realized we could do it ourselves. And we knew at that point we had to do something in-house. Our options were either going to be stay with what we had and do it cheaper, although.
Which wasn't an option.
Which wasn't an option because they weren't going to give us a break. And we realized that we very easily could take usage back. So that was always sort of on the table. We realized that we could go out and replace what we had with something that looked a lot like what we had, and nobody wanted to do that. Or we needed to build something in-house. And we spent the next couple of months looking at different options. Was Hadoop the right option? Did we want to use something else that's out there? I'm going to be honest, we were sort of looking for a way to use Hadoop. Our CIO was really interested in Hadoop. He really wanted it. He was one of the drivers on getting it in. So he was one of the first people to say, can we use Hadoop for this? We had Roger. To be honest, we did this small. He says 4. I think he's worth 4 people. But we brought in, we built teams around how do you build the hardware, how do you support what Roger's doing. But he was really key. We kept it very small. And I think that we did the entire swap out of the usage platform, including hardware and a couple of contractors for $500,000, $600,000. Is that about right? Anything you would add there on how you built your team? They can't hear you.
Microphone.
Sorry, I guess you could talk into my chest, but that would be weird.
There's a couple of different parts actually that the Hadoop system itself, there was really 4 of us that put it together. Once we bought the hardware, we of course had the guys go in and rack it all and set it up. So that was 2 individuals that did that. Then me and another guy built the system to deploy the nodes, which we actually got it to the point where if we needed to replace a node, we could just basically hit a switch and it'd bring up a brand new node in less than 5 minutes. So if you look at that, then I primarily wrote a lot of the code to do the ingestion part of it and what we refer to as the data interface into the systems that would be using it. So altogether, for just the Hadoop part itself, was about 4 people.
And we overlaid project managers and people that were dealing with the business side, so our technical teams didn't have to worry about that. We basically said, here's what needs to be built, and at the same time, we had another team of a couple people writing the downstream code as well.
And did you write also your own tools to maintain and to administer your environment, or did you choose to buy something for that?
What did you use?
We started out pretty much writing all of our own stuff because when we first started looking at it, there really was, like she said, there's no one that puts out a tool that does what we exactly needed. So we wrote a lot of it, but we did use a lot of the existing stuff, such as Hive and whatnot, to do some of the aggregate information that we use for different reports. So we wrote a lot of stuff that basically just would ingest it into Hadoop and do some of the rule checking. Then we do a lot of the aggregation with Hive itself. Then we use Scoop to basically load it into the reporting databases. Most all this stuff is free, it's what the standard tool set that comes with Hadoop. The only thing that really we had to write ourselves was the stuff that did a lot of the data checking. Most of that really was just like writing wrappers around stuff that already existed.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm really curious, sorry. I'm really curious about the, do you use things like Chef or Puppet for deployment? You talked about rapid provisioning, so I'm kind of curious about that. And if you have, your testing, is it do you use Jenkins? What's your platform to do continuous testing and improvements to the platform?
So we used, I don't know if everybody here has heard of Spacewalk. It's basically the open source version of Red Hat's satellite server. And we used CentOS to basically build most of the stuff on. So we just built the Yum repository with this and basically had it set up to deploy the nodes and push the configuration files out to all the nodes from it. We played around with Puppet to do some of the additional configuration stuff and some of the application deployment. Then, we used pretty much, our shop was really heavy into LAMP, so we didn't have a lot of Java developers that were available. I mean, one of the biggest problems we have, and most companies do, is finding really qualified Java people. So we did write some of the tools in, more of the LAMP stack, and, hack together what we needed with the Java stuff as well. So it, was fairly easy. I mean, it was the whole idea of, you hear a lot of people giving lectures about how they put these different pieces together. We really didn't do anything different. We just went out and found the tools that we needed to do it and used it.
So I guess what I'm wondering about is, in your second set of projects that came in and the customers are like, no, we trust you guys. I'm kind of curious how you kind of, knowing that responsibility is kind of like heavy, like how you do the testing. How do you, is it programmatically? Is it like you guys have a set of checklists?
Yeah, we actually have a QA group that goes through, and we do the whole software development life cycle. And they'll go through, and we get a FRD now. We all got grown up, because when I first started doing this, we really were kind of doing it from the hip. Then the groups came along and says, no, we need to projectize this and do the whole SDLC. So one of the things that we were trying to push at Clearwire was having a centralized QA group. So we actually got to bring these guys in to do a lot of the testing for us. And the part that they kind of leave off, which I think they really should add, is that we actually built 3 clusters, each being the exact same size. And admittedly, it was still 1/3 the cost of what the competitors were. And so we actually were able to build a QA environment that matched our production system. So we were actually able to do performance and regression testing really well, because it matched exactly. So that was one of the benefits cost-wise that they tend to overlook, because they're more concerned of what's in production. But from the developer standpoint, it was great. I can guarantee you, hey, if it runs like this in QA, it's definitely gonna run that way in production.
And that was part of, just driving people's comfortableness with the solution, right? And you're right, that having that environment there drove credibility, that how it performed in the tests. And we're strong partners with folks in the business who are going to see these downstream results. It's easy to kind of explain. It's very tangible. If we tested it here on the exact same thing, so it's going to look exactly the same once it hits production.
The other thing to note is that the first project we did, the foundational Hadoop project, by the time we came through and pulled the provisioning piece and did the second project, the Hadoop team, the Atlas team, had really moved into a focus on the new LTE usage. So by getting, the reason that we were successful in the follow-on project is that we got one of the partners' biggest concerns, which was usage, out of the way. So we were able to come in and do the second half, the 4.5-month project, and have them feel secure that we weren't touching their revenue stream, because it's great if you can provision people, but if you're not getting what they do, you can't bill them. And so that helped with the partners feeling comfortable about it. We also had an approach in that project where one of the driving factors as we went in was don't touch anything that touches partners. So you don't change the customer-facing APIs. You don't change any of the connection points. You don't change any of the outputs. So if whatever an external partner might see, you don't drive them into a test cycle along with you. But it was because we were so successful in the way we managed the Hadoop project and what we got in the end, where they didn't see files that were different. We put in an entire new generation engine, and the files they got on the last day looked exactly the same as the files they got on the next day. And so that helped. Probably no one really cares. If you want to talk about how to get, ditch your billing vendor, see me after this. But we outsourced a lot of it. We also did a lot of custom code in that second one, and so we had 2 or 3 different contract agencies that were doing our testing, which is sort of your normal test stuff. We have some automated tools that helped us do load and performance testing in the end. Again, those are custom. I was going to say, I don't know why we have the reputation of just building things and doing it custom, other than that's what we do, because that's what we do. I hope that helped.
Excellent. Any other questions?
All right, well, hopefully for people
think we
who
got
don't have five, oh,
one more
yeah,
question.
yeah. I thought you were leaving, I was like all sad.
What was the source of your data into Atlas? Was it the head-end database, or did you actually intercept the files as they came through?
Presently, right now, like she's saying, the RF group was doing some pre-processing of the files and sending us to us via like a FTP transfer in their raw files, so they're like CSVs. Just a lot of records in the CSVs. Then what we did was we basically ingest those into the Hadoop platform, and this actually solved several problems that we were having. Was a lot of copy data issues, where originally we were just sending these CSVs to all the different reporting servers, and everybody was storing them. So we kind of wanted to get away from that. We realized that people wanted different views of them. So with Hadoop, that we're actually able to not have as many copies floating around, and also we were able to slice and dice it to whatever the end reporting server's needs were. And then, you know, it was fairly painless for them, and we again saved money because we didn't have to buy additional storage for the reporting servers. So, and like our next big hope is that they actually let us start ingesting directly from the towers, which has kind of been going back and forth, which we will additionally cut the time down.
Yeah,
So that's
the new
my
Holy
pie in the
Grail
sky.
is getting that hour.
Yeah.
So when these guys came back and said I can shave a minute off of the 15, I'm like, crack the hour. I want us to beat the hour.
Because my other thing that I'm really also trying to push was you lose something when you load the raw data into databases. And if the closer we can get to the source of the raw data, the longer we have it around, so that when analysts want to take different views of stuff, we have it available. And that's, you know, the big bonus to me with Hadoop. And the fact that it's easily scalable. You know, I'm running out of storage. Hey, just go buy me some additional data nodes. We're good to go.
We've got about 3 minutes left. I think I probably have time for one more question if there is one. I don't see anybody wondering. So I think with that, it's been a pleasure being up here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and we welcome the feedback too via the mobile app.
Thank you.